So that's good because the next question is in regards to the average intake SRS. And so the feedback is great addition for deliberate practice. Can you elaborate on that?
I sure can, and this is one thing that I think was a really good addition, and it may seem like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth since I just said, well, averages aren't good, and yet we're reporting an average. But here's what we do know about average intake scores on the SRS. So at your very first session, lower SRS scores actually are correlated with better outcomes. So if you have a crew or you're individually always getting an average intake SRS of 39 or 40, you probably need to work on, that is, deliberately practice getting more negative feedback from your clients. Because, as I say, improving SRS scores are associated with much better outcomes, about 50% better outcomes. If we can fine-tune the work we're doing. How do we fine-tune? We find out where we're not tuned in to the particular client, and we have to do that early. We also know that scores that start high on the SRS and decline over time are put clients at risk for both dropout and much poorer outcomes, about 7 times less of an effect size when the SRS scores are declining over time rather than improving over time. And this is an area that, for me, that's become a big part of what I'm doing in workshops and in consultations, helping therapists formulate questions and create a culture in the room with clients that allows them to complain about very small things that, when improved, lead those SRS scores to improve over time. We assume that we are good at soliciting negative information, but we're really not. And most of us who start using the SRS actually end up with scores that are too high. So it is an area where we can really take some time to reflect, practice, and create new questions, especially for use in that initial session, to make sure that we're getting the kind of negative feedback we need to fine-tune and tailor the treatment to the individual client.
Yeah, and it's so key. You know, so often people who think that they get this are still coming and saying, you know, look, I've got high SRS scores. What's going on with this person? Right? You know, seeing it as like a patient satisfaction survey and wanting to get those high scores, and not getting that whole idea about the power of eliciting feedback.
That's okay. Right. It's the same thing with management, let me just say, that oftentimes managers who aren't therapists also get the wrong idea about the SRS. They treat it, as you call it, as a satisfaction tool, and they want all of the clients to score high. It's exactly